Baby Beard Media.
Shut up and take my podcast.
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 Stereotypes. The foreigner. My customs are different. Upwards inflections. Australian.
Your beer belly is so big, your door doesn't even close, and that doesn't even make sense.
The sentence ends well with, I got advice from Nixon.
We're a G-rated.
This is a problem. Are we? Futurama podcast.
Trademark. License. Copyright.
Don't say those words.
Shut up and take my podcast.
Your acting really came in handy there.
Yeah. So, am I a ghost or am I a Transylvanian person? I just flopped between the two of them.
I remember the class we had on overacting for turn of the century horror films. Yeah.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, it was a great class.
That's like
Really
that was a
good, yeah.
year of our study.
Turn of the century? What am I talking about?
Turn of a century. What is it? Turn of a century overacting.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit later than the golden age of horror films.
Welcome, everybody, to Shut Up and Take My Podcast. If you couldn't tell, that Futurama podcast where we look at everything Futurama related from Amy to Zoidberg. Not satisfied with that intro. I'm going to get to it eventually. But until I do that, I am Sean, and I'm joined here by Phil.
Hello.
And James.
Hello.
How's everyone doing?
We're good. Yeah, all right.
Yeah, we never
It's
just, we never
Sunday.
touch
It's Sunday.
base. We never
It is
touch
a
base
Monday.
in a podcast.
It's Monday.
It's Monday. It's not Sunday. Fine.
Yeah.
Monday.
Sorry.
We never touch base with each other during an episode. How are we doing?
Yeah, pretty good.
Yeah,
Cozy.
I'm pretty happy actually. Pretty happy these days. Yeah.
Warmish.
Warmish. Oh, it's sun's out. Sun's
Yeah.
out. Guns out. It's winter
Sun's out,
here.
guns out. Doesn't refer to any of us.
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are up to a little episode called The Honking, which is season 2, episode 18.
Sorry.
Does anyone know what that's in reference to?
I was going to say the Howling.
Yeah.
The Shining.
The Howling.
I'll say the Howling is like a werewolf film from
yeah,
the
The
Haunting.
80s.
Yeah, I mean, lots of horror movies are called The Ing.
The something.
Yes,
The
true.
something.
The Haunting or
the Happening.
Happening.
That's not a horror
that's-
movie.
that's
That's
not a horror
barely a film.
That's the one with plants make you kill
Whispering
yourself, right?
Trees.
Yeah.
Yes.
M. Night
The guy
Hilarious.
runs himself over with
great.
a lawnmower. Is that the unintentionally hilarious moment everyone talks about?
I think the film's unintentionally
I haven't
hilarious.
seen it. I haven't seen it.
Apparently, is Zoe Deschanel alongside Mark Wahlberg? That seems like a weird
Yes.
pairing.
Have the guys we did it last week done that one?
The Happening? No.
Yeah, they
No,
should. They
haven't.
should. They should.
really
One good thing we're talking about.
One
they
good
should
thing.
They should do
it
that.
can't be their performances because they have zero. They have zero chemistry.
No,
It's
those
like,
guys. No.
Is it the M. Night Shyamalan cameo? Because I know he's in there somewhere.
He's in there somewhere.
How do we feel about director cameos?
It depends. Because, for example, one of my favourite moments is Quentin Tarantino in Pulp Fiction.
Sure,
Yeah,
but
that's
then
great.
you look at Django Unchained and you're like, you suck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
like-
suck.
Why are you Australian?
Yeah.
Why is he there? What
Why
are you
is
doing?
this scene in the movie?
He's
Yeah.
usually like fine with his cameos, whereas like Jackie Brown, he's like an answering machine. Death Proof, he's just a bartender.
Yeah.
Like there's a little bit. It's okay depending on the role.
I get the
Seems like
feeling
it
with-
used to be more Hitchcockian than
That's what I'm
anything else.
saying.
Yeah.
With M. Night, I reckon he's like, I'm Hitchcock.
Yeah,
I'm going to be in all my
he
movies.
thinks he's.
Oh,
he
I'm sure
gives
does.
himself a role.
Yeah, he gives himself
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
he solves the movies sometimes, like Signs. He pretty much is the impetus for
Yeah.
the final act of the film.
I heard there was one. I can't remember what it's like.
He's in Split.
There's one. Yeah,
he's
there's
a,
that guy. It's like the
he's
hacker guy or
the
whatever.
security
Yeah, he
person?
does
Yeah.
tapes and stuff for
Yeah.
the main girl. Yeah,
There's-
the main woman.
There's a film he does. I can't remember the name of it. He plays like this messiah writer.
The Village?
No, like it's
Who
this.
is he in the village?
I don't know. Is he in the village?
Surely.
He must be in the village. Can a listener
the
please
bees.
tell us who is he in the
He's
village?
one of the bees. Just M. Night's in there with the just getting at his face.
What? There are bees in the village?
What am I thinking of? I'm thinking of
You're thinking of
Wicker Man.
Wicker Man. Dear God, man! Village is the one with creepy.
In my head, I was
Heavy
like,
creatures, yeah.
that's such an
Witches
amazing
and stuff.
pairing. M. Night Shyamalan and Nicolas Cage.
Oh,
I
why
would
hasn't it
love
happened
that
yet?
film.
Why hasn't it happened
watch
yet?
that.
Some of this will be good for outtakes.
Yeah, sure. Why not?
We'll have to tighten this up,
Or
maybe.
just the cutting room floor.
Yeah, for
possibly,
sure,
possibly.
for sure.
So the director is Susan Dieter, and the writer is Ken Keeler, my personal favorite.
Ken Keeler.
This is their first time that they are going to be pairing together. They come back for Godfellas, so
Okay.
that's where Bender's floating in space and he meets God.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
If you do
Free
something,
homes.
if you do something right, people won't think you've done anything at all. In my little tradition of giving you one more thing about each of them, that was my pen. Susan Dieta, who's directed a lot for The Simpsons, so she gives us episodes like A Star is Burns, Much a Poo About Nothing. And Ken Keeler wrote the controversial Simpsons episode The Principal and the Pauper.
yeah.
I
I
the
watched
one where it's like that killed the Simpsons.
Yeah, I watched that YouTube video, which is like, this is the point where the Simpsons died, and it's not saying like that episode is so
Responsible.
bad it's responsible,
No,
but
but
it's
you can
a
just
water.
point to it.
It's
Yeah.
a watermark.
Yeah, it's
for,
a little touchstone.
It's a high. Yeah, it's a high watermark for when the Simpsons started to go off the rails, because it just alienated all the fans of that character by saying, "Hey, you're wrong." It's creative, the episode, but just misguided. So I
Yeah.
don't blame him too much for that.
I mean, it's a fine episode. It's just that twist, really, that does it. It's,
Yeah.
there's a lot of good jokes, good character work, and
it just but it just turns Skinner into something
that he's not.
He's not. You've come to really like Skinner despite his kind of uptight, kind of authoritarianness. He's got a kind of charm to him.
Yeah.
And turning him into this sort of
bad boy
kind of person, yeah.
It's kind of nice having that subplot, because they do use it a bit before and after, where he obviously was in the army.
Yes.
So he talks a lot
Yes.
about that serious side to him, which does correlate to why he's the kind of uptight person he is. Like, that makes sense. But then to just completely flip it and say, no, he's a completely different person, and he was basically you, Bart.
Yeah.
But it just kind of like,
doesn't sit right with the character that people have come to know over time.
Now let's segue back into Futurama.
I was just about to do that. I was like, it's
Before
a
we get
twist,
too
it's a
lost in
twist that
Simpsons.
doesn't really work. Unlike the twist in this episode. See what I did there? The air date for this episode, by the way, is November 5th, 2000. It was the season 3 premiere.
Okay, all right.
So the way the broadcast order works, this actually kicks off season 3.
Okay.
And things get jumbled over for the first few episodes.
Not too bad in Futurama. It's not such a big issue.
No.
Yeah.
We are introducing Gypsy.
The chips, did she come back?
She comes back in Godfellas. So
Oh,
Ken
cool.
Keeler deliberately reuses her
Yeah,
again.
it's
Nice.
a good. She's a good character.
One of my favorite cameos.
She's great.
I'll get to it later. Who wants to run down the plot?
Oh, run down the plot.
Succinctly.
Bender gets hit by a werecar. I'd say the crew, Fry and Leela, want to help him. Bender wants to kill them while he's a werecar.
Yes.
The basis?
That's the very
That's-
that is like
yeah.
that's
That's
what
like
the
the
episode's
nuts
about.
Yeah,
and bolts.
basically,
The,
yeah.
the slightly longer version is that he inherits a mansion,
his uncle's fortune?
his uncle's mansion, not the fortune.
No,
It goes to
that's
the
right,
lazy
goes
son.
to-
Yep.
And he has to stay in the castle overnight, and he gets scared of ghosts, runs out, gets hit by a werecar.
Robot ghosts.
Yeah, and then they have to track down the original werecar and destroy it in order to uninstall the werecar routine.
Yes.
That's a slightly longer version.
slightly longer, yep.
So, guys, what do we think?
I think it's a pretty, well, for me, it's like a pretty memorable episode. I wouldn't say like iconic. I don't think, is it higher up on a list?
No, it's
No.
interesting. I don't remember this one greatly, but I really fucking enjoy this episode. I absolutely love this episode. That when I was watching it for the first time, I got more laughs out of it. That kind of died down in this viewing that we just did, and the plot holds up so strongly.
Yeah, that's something I noted is it's quite exciting.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's there's drama and excitement and running away and
There's that
leaping over
really-
fences and stuff.
It's really tied into that thriller horror.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the thing,
it's a
like,
very
it's a very genre episode. That's what I love
Exactly.
about
Yeah,
it,
it's very tropey, this episode, and it nails a lot of tropes really well and mixes a lot of those tropes together really well.
The soundtrack is absolutely spot on. The chase scene, the horror elements, that kind of murder mystery style, it's on point all throughout if you go back and listen to it. And the design work.
Yeah,
Especially
it's quite nice.
where is it? Not Transylvania, but it's got that kind of gothic
Yeah.
Victorian.
It's in the Robo-Hungarian Empire.
That's right.
Yeah.
It's beautiful to look at.
Yeah, it's really cool, isn't it? Yeah.
The way they use the fire and the light on each other and the door.
I think the design of Bender's murder car is pretty cool as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the way he transforms, the fact that he's like a 3D car. Like they
Yeah.
use that 3D animation they use to have him as the wear car.
They apparently
I really like that.
have him in both 2D and 3D, so
Yeah.
it's quite seamless in a lot of respects. I think
Okay,
you can tell it's more 3D when he's on the rooftop and he's going
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
That actual car is modeled off of a car from a horror film called The Car.
Oh, right, okay.
That was basically kind of similar, which is there is a mysterious car that is homicidal,
Yeah.
and is running people over.
Is that
And
based on the Stephen King?
Because Stephen
book?
King's Christine.
There's Christine as well,
Yeah.
which is the were car that runs over Bender is modelled after. Bender's
Right,
one
yeah.
himself. So in The Car, there's a detective who has to find out what's going on and who's behind it. And eventually, I think the car gets destroyed, and as the flames and smoke is coming up, they see a demonic presence right out of it, which insinuates it was a demon
demon
driving the
car?
car. And it just ends with them kind of like just ignoring that happened. They're like, that didn't happen. Surely not.
Have you seen Jewel?
Yes.
Jewel. Oh, you should.
Steven Spielberg's Jewel.
His debut, I believe.
Yes.
Yeah, his directorial debut. It's an amazing movie. Great movie as a directorial debut. Not very Spielbergian in terms of his oeuvre.
There's my word of the week.
Yeah, I was
Thank
looking
you.
at you to see if
I
you...
was like, that was very...
It was directed at you.
I appreciate and
do,
take it.
Do you know that word oeuvre? It's lovely,
I've
lovely
seen it.
word.
I've just never had a...
Just means a body of work.
Yeah.
It's a lovely word. Yeah, it's about a guy who's doing a long distance road trip for work, I think, and a truck fucking tries to kill him. So the truck starts like trolling him, basically.
Oh, this is the one that's following him all the
Yeah,
way.
it follows him,
yeah.
and it goes in front of him and slows down and won't let him pass, and he gets around it, and then it does it again and again and again, and there's no driver or anything.
Yeah.
There's no human element. It's just a fucking murderous
and
truck.
then like he goes into like this like restaurant after crashing. No, he's crashing car. He just stops his car, but he basically crashes into a fence. And all these truck drivers are here, and he looks out the window, and the truck's there, and he's trying to figure out which truck driver is it.
Yeah,
And he can't tell, and like he ends up hitting this one, but it's not him. And
But only you ever find out.
You
like,
never do.
It's sort of almost implied that the truck itself it's got this what I think. Okay, to tie it back into kind of horror tropes, it's got this kind of metaphorical level where the truck just represents malevolence, just the kind of
Malevolence or fear or those kind of things that humans...
Yeah, just the kind of vulnerability when you're out on your own, far from any kind of help.
But if you've seen,
I mean, we're all scared. It's the human condition.
Yes.
why do you think I put on this tough guy persona?
Sal is back.
Sal is great.
As lispy as ever. Or like, not even lispy, but it's like he uses plurals where he shouldn't.
Yeah.
And that starts to become more prevalent as you go on. But we all are scared. That's the human condition. That's why I put on this tough guy facade. Get out of here.
No. But that was pretty bad, I have to say.
Let's hear
I'm
yours.
so mean. I'm so... no.
Yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, that's a good seg into favourite moments.
Yeah, what are your favourite moments? What do you think? Like,
Who has liquor?
who was liquor? That's a good one.
Who did he take? I just realised I blinked away. I was like, I would have been curious to know whose he took. He took
Amy's hip flask?
Amy had a hip flask.
I think it was Amy's hip flask.
I think it's Amy's hip flask. I'm not sure, but everybody has booze stashed, which is very...
I do love like when they're in the village and it's like I choose to believe what I was programmed to believe. Just because like kind of how like people like raised with religion and like they're shown science, but it's like no, I'm going to ignore this.
choose to believe.
Yeah, it's
And
like
you're
I'm going to ignore the proof you just showed me, and I'm going to go with
and
this.
they're basically saying I choose to believe what I've always been told to believe.
Basically.
And also that kind of philosophical mumbo jumbo, which is, with all your science, have you come any closer to discovering how a robot walks and talks? Yes, you idiot. It's right there on your circuit board.
Yeah, they really undercut all the superstition stuff really well. So the mansion is haunted. The mansion which they have to stay in for a night, which is one of those lovely tropes, is haunted by ghosts of robots. But it turns out that the buried, because they bury robots when they die in a graveyard. It turns out that they are code is still connected. They're improperly shielded. So their code is leaking into a router. A router that's connected to the castle, and that's letting them project themselves as holograms.
Of course, it makes perfect sense.
I don't know, I feel like watching it, I wish the episode was just a castle episode. Like I love the
like a bottle episode.
Yeah, like I love the like the werewolf aspect, but just to have like a haunted house,
like
episode,
a Scooby Doo kind of
exactly
thing.
like Scooby Doo, and like they're just like trying to hard science. What's the real reason behind everything that's happening?
So that kind of that reveal that it's all like a really, really convoluted thing, saved right for the end of the episode.
So right for the end, but the whole episode's just inside that. Can we survive the night?
And they have to like unmask, the modem. It was you all along.
I do like that. It does feel like that's where the episode is going, because usually we've had a few kind of issues when they bring up something like, for example, in Fear of a Bot Planet, where they have that balloon ball introduction, and then we end up staying there for way too long, and then when it goes to the actual planet, you're going, oh, what was the point of having that there?
It's like a Pastorama thing as well.
Where this is kind of a nice, I like that it's self-contained, and you think, oh, this is where the episode's going to go, but they kind of tie it up in a neat little bow, and then it also just segues into having the werecar there, so it does kind of still tie in together.
It's like Haunted House meets Dracula meets Wolfman meets Christine and the car.
Yeah,
as well.
they're self-consciously going, how many tropes can we fit into this episode?
Put it all in. It's fine.
So it feels that the episode's packed in with a lot more, and it doesn't feel rushed. It actually feels like it felt like a longer episode, but not in a bad way.
Yeah, it did feel like it had a lot going in it. Calculon's back.
Calculon's
always a good feature, I feel like, if they can
He's
squeeze him in.
Acting
Talent.
Gypsy is one of my favorite introductions in a long time. She has one of my favorite lines, which is so Bender's saying, "So I can never die."
And it's
And
like,
she
what?
says, "Who said that? Sure you can die. You want to die?"
We touched on it just a second ago, but the robot funeral where he gets put in polystyrene and a cardboard box,
Yeah.
and then taped
Return
up
to sender.
return to
Yeah.
sender.
When I was watching that, like I was really hoping that like those like was it packing peanuts would have been like
Oh,
floated.
the little-
But,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
But I was watching that. I'm like, that's so much animation. Like, I'll let them pass.
You tell the animator that he just looks at you.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Can I get like 1,000 foam peanuts falling into the? And they're like,
can you shove it up your ass? Then again, they did hand draw 200 robots for the scene with Mom in Mother's Day.
Yeah,
so.
they could
Yeah,
hand
I'll
draw.
give them that.
But
Yeah,
I
the
think
packing
like
peanuts.
robots are much more fun to draw than billions of little nuggets.
yeah, moving all these little peanuts one after the other.
Figuring out how would they fall.
Yeah.
And
Oh
they
my
get
God.
crushed.
That's the hassle, you know. Fair enough.
I just realised that Calculon's thing of remaking himself like every couple of decades because he's 100 years old to be another acting robot. It's kind of like a vampire thing. I hadn't really realised. It's
Yeah.
kind of
True.
like a vampire
He's
trope.
1,000 years old.
Yeah, of course, one of the great acting robots over the years he's been is David Duchovny.
Yeah.
Who's a head in a jar in the pilot episode?
Right.
So either he's lying or that's a fake head.
Yeah, he made a comeback at some
They
point.
should have gone with Keanu Reeves or someone, because like people think Keanu
Or
Reeves is a vampire.
Arnold or one of
Someone
those.
who's like hasn't
Hello.
really aged even now.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves is still looking pretty young. Obviously, he looks aged
Patrick
now. but-
Stewart?
Patrick Stewart, true. Oh, he's looking pretty old.
I think he still looks the same as like
in Logan, he was looking old.
yeah. Well,
Well,
he's,
that's they
he's
emphasize
meant
that.
to be 100.
Yeah. They really give him that old thing. Thanks, Eagle Eye.
You know, that is one of the most dead straight things that Fry has ever said. It's
To
just
Leela as
almost,
well, yeah.
almost throwaway. It's so deadpan. I
Yeah.
love it.
This is where the tracks lead. It's
Thanks,
great.
Eli. I do love what's it like when that like laugh is playing throughout the castle. It's like, what is that? And then like Zoidberg is, it's infectious. He starts laughing with it.
The Windows 98 logo
it's a
and the
ghost.
Windows 98 sound.
Windows 98 also appears on the book.
Yeah, the
Curse of the Werecar for Windows 98.
But I don't know, for anyone that is from the 90s and has ever booted up their Windows 98,
Yeah.
that's the sound that it makes.
Yeah.
And that's meant to be a freaky noise.
Yeah, it is pretty freaky.
I'm going to test you, Sean. Okay, did you look up what the 11011011 was?
So when he's looking at
definitely
it
did.
and he goes, "Oh, that doesn't make sense at all," it says 357.
Okay.
But when he looks in the mirror, it says 666.
Ah, nice.
How binary works.
Yes, I thought I
Give me
remembered
another one.
I was hoping you'd have it. I was like, if you didn't
course
have
he
it, like, we're gonna have to cut this.
that. Yeah. If you didn't have it, it's like your job
What are
is
you
the
doing?
researcher,
Why are
right?
you here?
I wanted to talk about the Bender Fry. There's a whole subplot going on.
yeah,
That's
it's
not.
a good thing.
It's a subplot, but it's not. They don't go elsewhere for it. Do you know what I mean? It's not cut away. It doesn't happen in parallel. It's just part of the themes of the
Yeah.
episode. Is that the Werecar will kill the one you love, and he goes after Leela. And it just really upsets Fry.
Yeah.
And so you have that constant thing of Fry being like, "He's murdering me! Hooray!"
Fry really doesn't have a big picture idea of what the issue is here. It's like Bender's murdering people. He murders two. What are they? They were just carjackers or whatever.
Yeah,
they
they
were.
just beat up cars.
Beat up cars, go to church.
He's clearly killing people, and Fry's like, "Oh, you're going after people. I thought I was your best friend. Well then,
Well, technically,
He
like,
holds onto it for so long as well.
what's it?
the gypsy."
The gypsy was like, okay, you're going to kill people and then your best
Yeah.
friend. He does go after Fry eventually. Leela could
Eventually,
have just
yeah.
been considered a
that's
person.
a rando, yeah.
But
a rando
he's
walking on the
jumping to
road.
conclusions.
Yeah.
Because she specifically said he'll keep killing until one day
One
your
day,
best
yeah.
friend.
Yeah.
And the first person Fry sees is like, well, you've already jumped to that, haven't you?
Yeah, well,
yeah,
that's Fry for you. I do like when he's upset in the morning after he's been trying to murder them both. He says, "Oh, you tried to kill Leela," and she goes, "It was very sweet of you, Bender."
It's so in keeping with all their characters. Like Leela still has that kind of diplomatic. It's like, well, that was very lovely of you, wasn't it?
She's like, yeah, she's sweet, but then it gets to like, I guess I'll just go to something I didn't like. When she's like, oh, like the wear car is sad, and she goes over, that whole like little interaction they have, I feel like it just doesn't work. It doesn't really have like a joke to it where it's like, I love killing people. Where it's like, why was he sad? They didn't go into that.
It was a bit too on the nose. Like,
yeah.
Maybe if there was a way to show that it looked like he may have been sad, but he was actually doing something else.
I was like, because I hadn't seen the episode in a long time, I was expecting him to say like, oh, I haven't killed anyone in a while.
Yeah,
It's like, I've got no one left to crush or some shit like that.
Yeah.
Where it's like, we
subvert it better instead of just like, no.
It's like, I love killing. I'm
well,
like,
I'll put you out of your misery.
Yeah.
What do you mean? I just want to kill people.
Like,
you're here now. It's great.
Tell me why you're crying, okay?
Yeah.
It doesn't make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I don't think the finale's that great after the whole episode.
I would like just accidentally flies into a ramp leading right in front of it, the fire. Ruins continuity.
Was in a different room.
Yeah.
It was, wasn't it?
Because they go through a door to be like, crash course, watch out, ramps, and also Bender like teleports to the other side of that room, coming in the other direction.
Yeah.
I know it's a cartoon and continuity.
I still like some logic.
It just doesn't feel very satisfying that he just drives into a furnace. It's just
it doesn't really like they defeated him. It was kind of like, oh, he just drove himself
an
into
idiot.
it. Yeah.
This is where you need Cubit there, just sitting there like, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Where it's
Thing was here. Why is the ramp there?
I'd like Cubit to do commentary in character.
Have a commentary track.
Yeah,
put that into
commentary
DVD. Just have either the normal commentary with the creators or the Cubit track.
Yeah, where it's like
pointing out everything wrong.
This doesn't make any sense. Why are the
Mystery
crew doing
Science
this?
Theater with Cubit.
How do robots have relatives?
Yeah.
How does that work?
That's true.
Bender was created
Yeah.
on an assembly line. How does the uncle work?
You notice his uncle has a really cool facial hair.
Yeah.
He's got like the handlebar mustache.
Love that.
So I love the design because he's still somewhat a bending unit. Because you've still got that kind of a diamond that he's more gaunt. He's clearly still got the chest cavity being whatever it needs to be, which is his own
heart monitor.
monitor.
Not that he has a heart or anything. The Polish robot who they talk to, who's like, I choose to believe what I was programmed to believe. He's got like sort of like a hunched posture and a big belly.
Yeah.
He's like, they kind of look like peasants. There's like peasant robots, and the wear car that runs him over, who they go and find, is sort of like an old guy, Scottish guy,
farmer or something.
Yeah. Robots are just like people, but robots.
Yeah.
They don't have like robotic
Because it was
functions.
the Roman, what was it?
The Robo-Hungarian Empire.
Robo-Hungarian.
Robo-Hungarian. Okay, like this is on Earth? Or is this a planet?
No, this is the...
This is on Earth.
Okay,
yeah,
alright.
Yeah.
Because it could have worked on like, what's the Fear of a Bot planet? If that planet had more of a like, different locations around the world, had different kind of like...
There's also Inuit aliens as well. Inuit robots. They go speak to the abominable snowmobile.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course.
It's just a robot that lives
in an igloo.
in an igloo. What purpose does that serve?
At first I thought that I was thinking in my head, she's obviously secluded herself away because she's a danger.
No.
But then I realized, no, they said that that's where he was hit. So she's always been there.
He's always been there, just a robot Inuit wearing a parka.
Wait, and
because robots get cold.
Did
right?
you say he was bird watching in the Antarctic?
Yeah, that annoyed.
Yeah,
like
because she says, yes, I killed that bird watching jerk.
Why was he doing bird watching there?
I don't.
That's
Penguins?
probably,
Of all places.
that's probably the joke, I guess. Or,
I'm assuming so,
or just
okay.
watching out for penguins. I don't
Maybe.
know.
I guess bird. But penguins are bird. kinda.
Robots have a very special logic in
Yes,
Futurama.
yes,
It really
yes.
doesn't pay to question it too much.
One thing that I didn't particularly like, I can understand the logic of it because Zoidberg apparently puts his name on anything, but why is he shilling out Mary Sue makeup?
It was. I thought it was Mary. I thought it was Mary Kay.
It just kind of randomly comes out of nowhere, and I get that kind of idea of, Zoidberg, he puts his name on the spa planet.
Well,
and
I
gets
think
people
it's
to
a
go
thing of
there.
like he's always trying to make money, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
now
yeah.
he's shilling makeup.
Even to his
he's
friends,
so
yeah,
poor.
yeah.
It just kind of runs flat for me, and it's kind of meant to be played off
I
as a
feel
joke.
like back
was
then it might
yeah.
have been more popular, where it's kind of like a traveling knives salesman kind of thing, where it's like now we're selling makeup door to door.
So
like,
it's the Avon lady is the
Basically,
is the
yeah.
thing, isn't it? Yeah. So
I mean, I kind of like that as almost like a plot line in itself, is Zoidberg trying to become like a door-to-door salesman.
yeah.
You want makeup?
and then he ends up like finding
Tupperware.
McDonald's, and then
Yeah.
buys into McDonald's. If anyone's seen The Founder?
But it's just kind something that comes up and never kind of comes away again. Like I did like Zoidberg gets his moment with the infectious laugh, and I kind of would have been okay with that.
Yeah, that's fine. Maybe they could have given that moment for something, for another character.
Yeah,
I
they
mean,
don't
Yet
use-
Hermes had something, but
Well, they don't use the other crew very much in this episode.
no, Amy's not used
No.
at all.
I mean, Amy gets an underwear mag, but that's only as part of a 3-part gag.
Farnsworth gets to yell at the Polish bot.
Yeah, and he gets his little reveal of the science of ghosts. Oh, by the way, I really want to mention this. The last ghost died over 200 years ago. Not robot ghosts.
There was quite a few deleted scenes in this too, actually.
Oh,
One
yeah,
of them
tell us
had
more.
more Farnsworth. Bender comes up and says, "I'm scared," to Hermes. What they cut out was Farnsworth comes up and says, "Maybe there is someone trying to chase Bender down. How many people are going to have to die before it gets Bender?" Bender replies with, "Not enough." Another one they took out was when Bender and Leela come out of the Robot Arms apartments, and Leela says, "Well, I'm going to go off and cook my meals for the next month."
And freeze them, yeah.
Fry says nothing and then just walks off. The first thing I realize is that's his house.
The robot arms, yeah. He
Yeah,
lives with
Ben-
Bender.
Bender's in his room, but they cut out a thing where he says, "I guess I'll go listen to that homeless guy in the Port Authority. He makes some good points." So that's why he's gone off to listen to someone.
I never thought of that.
Yeah.
He's leaving his own home.
I guess that's why it's not necessary to explain why he leaves.
Yeah.
Like, you just don't really
I
question it
wouldn't
in the
want to
logic
stay
of the
with Murderous
episode.
Bender anyway.
Yeah.
And then they have, so instead of when the executor is giving the will to everyone, he says to the butler, "No, you there." So it's a you there.
You there, the butler, yeah.
You get a pittance to be installed through 20 installments, to which he just burst into tears. They cut out his line. "This is the thanks I get after that tyrant bossed me around for hundreds of years, always saying, 'Buff my ass, buff my ass. Oh, how I miss buffing that sir's ass.'" And then he bursts into tears. They just cut to the tears.
Yeah, okay. That's
Tears
yeah.
works. It's fine.
That's
And then
fine.
he
The
goes
joke
down.
is that he gets a 20th of a pittance
Yes.
every year. Not that he's buffing a robot's
Yeah.
bum. Like, that's not that
And then
funny.
like the
not that
Euro
funny.
Trash 80? 80? Euro Trash 80? I don't know what the 80 is in.
That was on the
reference to.
Sun's.
Oh, right, yeah,
stomach.
yeah, the lazy
And
sun
they get
trope,
like
yeah.
millions of dollars, and I don't know how much that is.
How much is
but
that kid who never learned the value of a dollar?
Is that a lot?
That's a good joke.
Yeah, I mean, you say they pack a lot in and it's long. It rushes a little bit here and there.
It's the ending where I'm a bit little.
Does let it down.
Yeah, I do. I love the Satan Project
Project
Satan.
Project Satan, yeah,
it
which
was
has
like,
got
what,
the
Wait a minute.
steering wheel from Hitler's car,
the left
Charles Manson.
Charles
Yeah,
Manson's
Charles Manson
combi,
VW.
the turn signal, and
the windscreen wipers from
Knight
the car
Rider.
that was used for Knight
Knight
Rider.
Rider.
Knight Rider wasn't evil. His windscreen wipers were.
wipers were.
It didn't come up much in the show.
That's a great joke. I like that idea that it's just not explained why scientists would want to do that.
Yeah.
And they're like, they made a
No,
hideous
exactly.
mistake. It was pure evil. It's like, they made it out of evil parts. What do you think was going to happen?
What was the project? What was Project
It's
Satan?
Project Satan, yeah, and then they're surprised it was evil.
Let's see what happens.
It's a very Farnsworthian kind of approach to science,
Yes.
where he just makes doomsday machines because...
Does that mean like because it was at anti-Chrysler? Does that mean the people from Chrysler made this? Like
so.
it was just them? Damn Chrysler!
You can't make it over thousands of years because he's not that old, but could Farnsworth have been somehow responsible for the wear car through one of his crazy inventions, and that becomes one of those reveals later on as part of
I
those
would have liked that.
kind of tropes of look, he just has to give a reveal. Yes, it was me. I'm sorry. And there's only one way to defeat it. It's one of my biggest
Surely
mistakes.
he could have made
Yeah.
up saying it from at Mom's.
I once worked for Chrysler.
Sure, yeah.
Sued.
But then, I mean, if you had the solution, you wouldn't have the lovely gypsy lady.
It could be one of those things.
I'll
that-
just sleep here.
Could one of you please? Oh, never mind.
She's there forever.
I do like to do when she gets her little robot legs.
The only way you're a robot is if you have legs.
Little robot legs, yeah. That's exactly what they do for everything in Mother's Day. They
Yeah.
just add robot legs on
Add
arms.
legs and you're fine. Oh, does the I feel like the vending machine didn't have legs.
It has legs.
Did
yeah.
it?
Yeah, it has
it did.
legs
I thought,
and
I thought it
arms.
shuffled
Yeah, yeah.
itself. Okay.
No, it has
It,
legs.
it waddled, but it still had legs.
It has legs. Yeah.
Okay,
They've all
damn.
got legs that look a lot like Bender's
Oh,
legs.
right.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, just tiny little feet, basically.
Yeah.
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 That's how Mum keeps keeps it in the family. You always know it's a mum bot because it has those legs.
Maybe like patent pending. You just put legs on something and she owns it.
Patent pending.
I was really hoping, I was waiting for it all episode because it's such a Bender episode. Bender having another function in his cavity. All it is you can fit a whole fry in there. That's the only function.
And he
I'll give
pulls
it
the
that.
dice out of it.
He does pull the dice out of it.
Which
but
is
that's-
just the empty space.
I'm always tickled when there's a good new function for Bender. Like his head being a bell in the Poplars episode.
This time it's just a fry hole, basically.
Yeah, fry hole. Stick it in your
I
fry
wish
hole.
there was like some better way to kill like Project Satan other than just throwing him into a fire.
Into a fire.
That melting
Something
felt
with
like
hubris.
it was a reference.
Terminator or something? Oh, that doesn't feel right.
It's
It's not really a horror. It's not really a horror film, is it?
No.
Yeah.
The first one is.
Yeah, it's more of a thriller still, I'd say.
That shot just seemed very specific.
It's very
cuts in.
final girl, unstoppable force heading towards her.
Right, sure.
Yeah. Should we do a vote?
Yeah, let's do it. What do we think?
Mother's Day.
Mother's Day.
I just love that episode so much.
Yeah.
This is robot focused as well, but for the things we were talking about, how the robot logic makes no sense and they're just like people who are robots. I really like that thing about Futurama. I think it's a unique take on robots. And so I love the robot focused episodes. How many times can I say robot?
Robot.
In 30 seconds.
Robots.
But the Mother's Day is a superior robot focused episode.
Yeah, definitely.
I would have gone for the honking personally.
really?
I just had a much more enjoyable time with this episode.
It's a great
but
episode. It's really fun.
I knew I was going up against Mother's Day. I figured that would be the thing, but I just
The honking would have come close, I think, if they didn't. It was like great. There was like great like horror and thrilling and like Castlevania, not Castlevania,
Sure.
like
Transylvania.
Transylvania,
Transylvanian kind
like
of
type of place.
It's very Scooby Dooey.
Yeah,
But
like
I don't feel
Scooby-
this episode is better than Poplars though, and Poplars didn't beat Mother's Day.
That is
so.
true.
I would have put it over Poplars.
You put it so
Yeah.
over Poplars?
But it was going great, and then you get to the werecar, or not the werecar, the Project Satan. You defeat him by going up a big ramp, and it goes, and it's like and then like the little dialogue didn't really land the joke.
Yeah.
How does the episode end?
Choking
Fry
Fry.
bringing the beer out, his last beer.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and then the Simpsons choke at the end,
Yeah,
which is
I didn't have
not
as
a great
much
joke.
of a issue with the third act. I didn't have as much of an issue. Felt fairly
It's
happy
not
with the way it
third
ends.
act for me. It's the final scene.
Sorry, that's what I mean. The
yeah,
final
yeah,
scene,
yeah.
like in the Chrysler, I don't really have as much of an issue with it. But yeah, no, Mother's Day, you can't really complain.
It can be hard to beat.
Yeah,
I think.
it will be beaten though.
Who doing?
Oh, eventually.
So, what voice do we have?
Gypsy. We got Polish, Romanian robots.
Project Satan.
Project Satan. It's got a pretty normal voice.
Yeah,
Is it
Project
like,
Satan's
I love killing?
Well, Project Satan's pretty much going to be the same voice as who's the Stabby McStab robot?
Clamps.
No.
Not clamps.
Mental asylum
Oh,
robot.
yeah, I know who you mean.
yeah.
I can't think of the name.
We'll find him when we get to him.
Yeah. I think it's got to be Gypsy or
Gypsy.
Romanian
Gypsy.
robot.
Yeah, let's go for
Gypsy's
Gypsy. then.
Gypsy then.
You want to die? Oh, that's hard. This is too Romanian.
I mean, she is kind of a gypsy. It's
Yeah,
kind of
true.
similar.
Yeah.
Could one of you? Oh, never mind. I'll just sleep here.
Follow me.
Just sound effects. You get a point for that.
Yeah, I went for that because that's the easier one.
There's like 20% dialogue, 80% sound effects. Who said that? Sure, you can die. You want to die?
Yeah, it's good. I
Yeah,
I
nice.
do love
Nicely
that line
done.
though.
Next.
What do we have next
Next.
week?
Oh, well, next week we have what is the true season finale, which
The
is
recording.
for season 2. The Cryonic Woman.
Cryonic Woman.
Fry gets a bit of a blast from the past.
Oh, his girlfriend. is
Michelle.
frozen. Yeah.
Michelle, baby.
I believe don't they end up? Yeah, well, we'll save it for next week.
we'll save it for
I
next
believe
week.
they do.
Yes,
I believe
yes.
they do.
They do that thing.
They do that thing.
Okay. All
Which
right,
is
we'll
away
save
from
that.
the thing, and then
Yeah.
things happen.
Join us.
But until that point, I have been Sean.
I've been Phil.
I've been James.
See you later, guys.
Yeah.
See ya.
Been fun.
Message us.
Twitter us.
Email us.
Oh yeah.
Twitter, email,
Insta.
Instagrams.
Ratings,
Rate us. Do
Rate us.
money.
help us be a success. Back once again. With the Renegade Master.
Is that a beastie boy?
I don't think so.
You know, it's Chris.
Chris.
Is he the rap expert?
Yeah,
He's the Beastie,
Beastie
Boys
Boys.
episode.
Oh, right, sure. I'm pretty sure it's not Boys of Beastiness. The Beastly Boys.
the beast of
the
boys.
Beastly Boys.
Beastly. I choose to believe what I was programmed to believe.
That's the best. I love that.
Yeah, that's our Secret of Mana was like the first one of those huge RPGs that I played. You know, sprawling story and big overworld and stuff. Takes hours and hours, and you're just like, oh my god, it's the best thing ever, and you spend 14 hours to explain. Can't do that anymore. Too old.
Brought to you by NatureBox. We're not.
We send you
We're brought to you
box
by
of nature,
NatureBox, Loot Crate, anything that comes in a box.
MeUndies.
Nerd box, Nerd
Dollar
Crate.
Shave Club.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Very cool. Audible,
JB Hi-Fi.
The Apothecary,
Sure,
Big
if
W.
we
Adelaide Casino.
Yeah, if we just say sponsors, can they eventually just start paying us?
Yeah, for sure. They have to. That's how law works.
Brought to you by you, listener.
You.
Give us money.
Give us money. Buy, we'll just
I don't know how they can do that. We don't have a Patreon or anything. But track us down.
Bitcoin?
Give us some Bitcoins. Track us down through the dark web.
to the dark web.
Turn up on our doorstep and give us money.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd accept that.
I would totally take that.